Freiburger here. I'm gonna take you along with me on one of my personal Southwest road trip vacations. We're gonna see all kinds of cool stuff. Mostly the greatest military junkyard I've ever seen, a few abandoned places, and my favorite Southwestern town ever. All of that and a bunch more. Are you ready for it? Let's go. My Suburban here is a 1990. It's a V1500, it's a 4x4. It's got the 350 TBI motor. It's completely gutless. It is super, super clean and reliable, so this might not be like an automotive adventure kind of trip. Hopefully the thing just makes it the whole way, but it does have 202,000 original miles on it, so you never know. We're gonna kick this thing off in Casa Grande, Arizona, which is what the locals call it. It really should be called Casa Grande, but they call it Casa Grande. Casa Grande, of course, in Spanish means big house, and in American colloquialism, big house means prison. So there you go. Got some pretty good stuff to look at here, starting off with one of the weirdest abandoned places ever. These were built in the late 80s by a company called Innercon, and I'm thinking it's more con than inner. These buildings are all like dome shaped. Apparently they wanted to build circuit boards here. The one that looks like a UFO was supposed to be the main office, and all of the other ones were gonna be manufacturing facilities. I guess the company went out of business before they actually manufactured anything, and now it's just a place where apparently stoners hang out. Apparently the way they manufactured these things is they made giant balloons, and then they shot foam over the balloons and then put concrete on top of the foam. So that's pretty innovative. This is just wild. What we've got going on here is actually pretty cool. See this giant concrete iron cross in the ground? There is a grid 16 miles by 16 miles of these things all around Casa Grande, and there's one at every intersection of every mile. So there's 16 times 16 plus a few extras. There's basically 257 of them around here. And what they were for is a thing called photogrammetry. I think I understand this, I could have it wrong, but I think what they do is they fly an airplane over at a given altitude and they take a photo, and by using that, they can then scale, if the plane's flying at a different altitude, what the actual distances are on the ground. I think that's actually how it works. It's like for calibrating the camera or something like that. Even if I have it wrong, it is pretty cool. There's the iron cross in the ground. And once again, 257 of them or something. They did these in the mid-60s. If you walk over here right into the middle, you can see that there is a marker from the Army Corps of Engineers. And it says that this was done in 1966, Army Corps of Engineers. Now I understand it's not always this way, but there happens to also be a US Geological Survey marker here. And this one says 1964. So that's what this is all about. And I think it's pretty cool. That's that. Now we're gonna move on and see if there's more cool stuff to see in Casa Grande. Now I'm back in the main town. One of the things I always like to do is look for old car dealerships, but I didn't expect anything like this. This is the SS Blinkie. This was built in 1946 and it looks like a ship. The guy who owned the dealership, his last name was Blinkie. Apparently this was a Ford Mercury dealer since 1946. And now Tucson. We made our way here from Casa Grande last night and did a couple more stops. In Casa Grande, they've got a neon park with a bunch of restored neon signs from all around the area. We saw neat stuff like an old photo shop, a shoe shop, Ralph's Cafe, a hardware store, but the greatest was the Horseshoe Motel, and they had a reproduction of one of those waivers who would stand in front of the hotel and get people to stop. So that was really neat. Then later on, we stopped at the site where Picacho Peak Trading Post used to be. This place burned down a long time ago, but they had a Muffler Man Indian there. Unfortunately, all that's left is about one leg from the knee down and one shoe, but it was really cool to see. And then Tucson, where there were two more Muffler Men. The first one was at Cummings Plumbing. The cool thing about this is it was dressed like Santa. Apparently they change it up for the different seasons. And then there was one whose name is Glen Stone because it's at the corner of Glen and Stone in Tucson. In all this adventuring driving around, it forces you to go into neighborhoods where you otherwise probably wouldn't go, and that's where you see really neat old signage, and I spotted Service Motor Parts. It was so cool. So I had to get a couple shots of that. And moving on, we found a statue of a bull that was very festively decorated. At this point, there was a bunch of drives down historic streets with neat old hotels. There's Miracle Mile. The most famous one there is Ghost Ranch, but they've also got the Wayward Winds and the Monterey Court. Then we went over to Drachman, and that's where that classic Tucson Inn sign is. If you follow any kind of sign accounts on Instagram, you've seen this a zillion times. And right next door to Tucson Inn is the Frontier Motel. This place looks like it only shut down just recently. Neat old buildings and a great sign out front. And finally heading down Oracle, where there's a whole bunch of neat hotels, but the greatest one is the Hacienda. Another one that looks like it just shut down, and it's got some neat old signs. And wrapping it up with that Tucson sign, the giant cactus in the middle of the road. And so that's how that went down yesterday. And today there's going to be more adventure. We're still sticking kind of urban at this point. I probably need to hit some off-road, but that might not happen today. There's more cool stuff to see. I found it. The ultimate dive cafe in Tucson, right there. It is called Frank's and Francisco's. It's got regular breakfast in the morning, Mexican food in the night. Check out how they have the green plastic hardware store tarp covering the front of the place. It is awesome. Fantastic breakfast. If this place had Coke instead of Pepsi, it would be the ultimate. But regardless, it's like in my top 10. Tucson Bowl. You can see that they've got balls and pins on the wall, but the greatest thing is the murals out front. They've got one of cavemen bowling, actually I guess cave people because they've got like a whole family. Then they have got one with leprechauns for whatever reason, and finally a radical one that would have been like current times in 1961 when those things are painted. Check out the family with like the cool diamonds on their bowling shirt. Not quite as good as my flannel. Anyway, it's been cool. One element of Tucson local history is Magic Carpet Golf, which was a miniature golf course from about 68 to 2008. When it closed, there was a movement to save as many of the old statues as possible, both at businesses and also at homes. They've moved around a lot, but I was able to find the sun, a little ant in somebody's front yard, an alien head, is a little creepy, and the giant Easter Island head, or Moai, which is at a bar called The Hut on 4th Avenue, which is a cool little area. Next, I headed to the Pima Air and Space Museum. This is 5 hangars and 80 acres of amazing aircraft history. I shot so much footage here that I decided that I'm going to save it for a future video where I reveal all of the automotive related stuff at the museum. So watch for that. I'm going to have it coming up on the channel. I wrapped up the day at the infamous Aircraft Boneyard in Tucson under a killer double rainbow. And now I'm moving on to a breathtaking military truck boneyard. This is Jack's Military Surplus in Tucson. The guy here is just so cool. Last time I stopped here was with Payway, and it had to have been 25 years ago. And he's still got nothing but M30A1 stacked up everywhere. I say nothing but. Actually, he's got M715s, Hummers, any kind of military vehicle that you can name. This place is amazing. These are all M38A1s, which are the military precursor to the CJ5. These are the very first round-fendered Jeeps. 1952 would have been the first one. This one here is an M37, which would have been a Dodge military vehicle that predated the Power Wagon. Power Wagon would have been the civilian version of that. You need a Sikorsky? Jack is your guy. Look at this thing. You can actually have yourself a helicopter because genuine military. I was so excited about the helicopter, I didn't notice that he has an M274. This is a mule. Look how it's nothing but like a flatbed you can use to carry stuff around, probably an airfield. See how it has a little footwell there that folds up, and that steering wheel folds down so the thing can become completely flat for transportation. These things are neat. That's like Vietnam era. This is the M715 right here. And I don't know if you can see way down here in the distance. See all the ones with roofs on them? Those are M725 ambulances. I'm guessing very few people have as many as you're seeing right here. I showed you the Jeep M715 ambulances. These are the earlier Dodge M43 ambulances. These were made from 51 to 54 by Dodge, and then later on they had the M43B1. And once again, you'll never find more than you're seeing right here at Jack's in Tucson. Here's one of the very coolest things that I spotted here, an M561 Gamma Goat. Google these things, you'll see that they're actually 6x6 1¼ ton trucks. This is only the front half of it. It's articulated in the middle and has a drive shaft that powers what looks like a trailer on the back. They're amazing. The other thing about these is that they're semi-amphibious. How cool is that? Here comes more greatness. Not this, which is a really good civilian CJ5, but over here, the M422, known as the Mighty Mite. AMC built these from 59 to 62. It's an aluminum-bodied, really short wheelbase little sort of Jeep replacement with an air-cooled AMC V4 in them. They're just so cute. You gotta have one. Oh, the CJ5's actually pretty good too. These right here are what's called an M151, Vietnam-era Ford-built sort of Jeep replacement. All of these are Jeep Kaiser M715s. They were made from 67 to 69, and you can see that the front of them is basically a Gladiator pickup, similar to even a Wagoneer, but the fenders have those big old cutouts in them. You can see even the door is the same as the full-size Jeep, but look at the roof. These were basically a 1¼ ton roadster pickup based on the full-size Jeep. They're one of my favorites. I've had 2 of them. These things would have been powered from the factory by the Tornado inline 6 overhead cam engine, which was the first overhead cam engine mass produced in the United States. Anyway, I've rarely, if ever, seen this many M715s. Well, I found it. My absolute favorite vehicle here. Look at this. The Mean Maroon. That is an M38 flat fender Jeep. It is the military version of like a CJ2A, although I should actually say the CJ2A is the civilian version of that. This thing is amazing. Look how someone's put hood scoops on it, lettered the thing up, painted it orange. That thing is great. And look at the one behind it as well. We found a Jeep FC, or forward control. This is an FC 150. The original ones of these were built on a CJ5 chassis, believe it or not. They always look to me like they're gonna fall over on their face. Man, I could spend another day or 2 out here. There's just so much stuff to see. You can drop by. It is Jack's Government Surplus Trucks in Tucson, and everything there is for sale. But now, I am headed out towards Tombstone. Finally out of the city. Last night when I was cruising around, I stopped at this location I had seen forever driving past on the 10 there in Tucson. It's the remnants of the Spanish Trail Motel, and the sign that was there and the shape of the building and everything is awesome, but it was super seedy down there, so I didn't get any video or anything. Instead, right now, I am out east of Green Valley, Arizona in the desert. Now, one of the cool things about Green Valley is it is the site of the only remaining Titan II missile silo. There was 54 of these things all over the country at one time, 18 of them around Tucson, and they were nukes. Each one of them had the capability of leveling 900 square miles of city. To put that in context, LA is like 460 something square miles of city. So that's fun devastation. I'm at the site right now of one of the former missile silos. What's interesting is they took these 18 that were around Tucson. When they decommissioned them, they dynamited all of them after clearing the nukes out, clearly. And then they left them open like that for, I guess, a few weeks so that the Russian spy satellites could come through and verify that they had all been decommissioned. Once that was done, they smoothed them over like what we're seeing here, and the last one left is that one museum. So now I think I'm going to do some more exploring in the desert. It's good to be out of town, and I think I'm headed towards Tombstone, Arizona. I'm in Sonoyta, Arizona now, and we've got propane tanks that look like a baseball, a smiley face, a hot dog, watermelon, and some other kind of snacks, and a tribute to America. Jeep for sale at an abandoned gas station. This is a 68 CJ5. It's got the original Buick 225 cubic inch Dauntless V6. It's a 3-speed manual transmission, which means it's a T14 or a T86. It's a Model 18 transfer case, single stick. I think this thing's got 427 gears in it, if I remember right. And basically, the Jeep is really good. I like it a lot. It appears to be bone stock. It does have a lot of Bondo in it and stuff, but he wants $3,500 for it. I can't do that right this moment. I would love to call him and drive the thing away, but I've got no way to do that. And I just bought a Roadrunner before we even started this trip, so money-wise, it's a problem, but I'm gonna have to call this guy. I would love to like go pick up Rick Payway and drive this thing home. Maybe I can do that on another video, we'll see. You know, one of my favorite things to do on these trips is to look for old gas stations and diners. Well, this is both. I'm in Palamino, Arizona, and this is the former trading post there, and you can see that it also used to have a gas station. Neat old gas station sign, awesome diner lettering on the side. Look at that old overhang on the window, the awning. On the other side of the building, there's lettering that says Palamino Trading Post. There's an Indian cutout, and if you look through that window right there, there is still a sink with dishes in it. This is cool. I told you I was going to Tombstone. Well, I got derailed by that Jeep and decided to go down to Bisby instead. But on the way to Bisby, I got derailed and decided to see how close I can get to Mexico. And so we are in Nako, Arizona right now, which I think is right across the border from Naco, Mexico. And there's also Nako Camp here that I'm gonna go check out. Some old adobe, I think, military dorms or something. Oh, there's the border right there. All right, let's check this out. This is Camp Naco, which is right outside of Naco, Mexico, in Nako, Arizona. Actually, I guess the whole area is owned by the city of Bisby. This whole area, these old buildings and dormitories and stuff, were built between 1919 and 1922, according to the sign. And part of the deal is they wanted to protect the United States-Mexico border from people coming over into the United States from the Mexican Revolution that was going on. And I find this really hilarious. They had assigned a whole bunch of black soldiers here out of Fort Huachuca nearby. And it says on the sign, their duties focused on patrolling the border and protecting US citizens who came to Naco to watch Mexican revolutionary battles raging across the border. Literally, it was a war that had spectators, and they had to send these guys to keep these idiots from like getting themselves hurt. Unreal. Anyway, there's a bunch of just still clapped out old adobe buildings and stuff here, and I'm gonna look around at that just a little bit and then drive on into Bisby, which I know is really good. Okay, finally, we're entering Bisby and Lowell. I've been here a few times on trips, and actually on the very first episode that we ever shot of Roadkill, we were right here on this street. A friend of our producer owned some of these buildings at the time. It is just the greatest, isn't it? Look at the old 55 Chevy wagon, 59 Chevy muffler shop, Chevy store, Gulf sign, Harley dealer, the Lowell Theater. This street is a little bit made up in the sense that they've sort of gathered old cars and signs and stuff here, but it's just one of the neatest old vintage places you'll ever find. Bisby here is actually a copper mining town. Straight ahead of me is the giant strip mine where they pull copper out. Or I should say pit mine. Yeah, basically I jammed here as fast as I could and bypassed Tombstone just to see this short block of greatness. Last night I rolled out of Bisby, cannonballed on the highway all night long, and made it, as promised, here to Tucson, Arizona. You know, if you really dig Western stuff, this is probably a great place for you. For me, it's a little bit touristy, not enough genuine oldness going on, and so this is where I'm gonna wrap it all up. But you know what? It has been an amazing trip. I think over the last 11 days that I've been on the road, seen so much stuff. Not as much abandoned things as typical, but man, the aircraft museum and tying in the car stuff there, loved it. The junkyard was the best, absolutely ever. And good adventures on the road. And perhaps most importantly, I found the best dive cafe in Tucson. I will be back to Frank's and Francisco's. But you know what? The next road trip is gonna take me on someplace all new and all great and full of junk and abandoned stuff. I'll see you then.